Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a really incredible builder's journey. Specifically, we're tracking the transformation of the BWI's Central America flight spot. We're going to walk through the exact steps it takes to grab a fragile, local Telegram bot, the kind running as a casual weekend experiment, and transform it into a rock-solid, recoverable, cloud-hosted product. I mean, if you've ever built something cool on your laptop, gently closed the lid, and then instantly realized you just accidentally took your entire product offline, yeah, you know exactly how painful that amateur phase is. It's a completely necessary stepping stone for sure, but you absolutely cannot stay there. So, if you've ever wondered how to scale up your own messy side project into a highly resilient professional ecosystem, well, stick around because this is absolutely for you. We've got a really clear structured roadmap for today. We are going to start by escaping the local bot trap, and then we'll tackle the whole GitHub deployment decision. After that, we'll see exactly why boring discipline saves hours, walk step by step through the cloud deployment playbook, and finally, look at how to scale from a single experiment to a full ecosystem.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, escaping the local bot trap and making that crucial move to the cloud.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between how a hobby project starts and how it actually needs to operate if it's going to survive. Think about the classic local-only bot. It runs directly on your personal laptop, it's incredibly fragile, and honestly, it's a terrifying way to operate. If your computer goes to sleep, your bot dies. If your Wi-Fi hiccups for 10 seconds, you drop live user sessions. And if your hard drive fails, well, there is zero recovery. The whole project is just gone. Poof. On the flip side, we have our target state, true cloud infrastructure. This is where your code is fully backed by GitHub, highly recoverable, portable to any virtual private server, and built to actually scale. That shift from a single point of failure to cloud-based resilience, that is the fundamental leap from hobbyist to professional. A massive part of moving to that professional infrastructure actually starts with an identity evolution. The original bot had this clunky, sprawling working title, BWI Central America Flight Deal Radar. It's a bit of a mouthful. To scale it up, it had to be renamed to a much cleaner, standardized format, BWI Central America Flight Spot. And look, standardizing the identity isn't just about making the name prettier. It is the absolute vital foundation that allows multiple bots to talk to each other cleanly down the road without getting lost in a tangled mess of weird naming conventions. And that single, unified identity, that anchors us directly to the core OpsHub philosophy, which is simply this: one bot, one product, one customer promise. Think about it. You literally cannot make a solid, trustworthy promise to your users if your bot's infrastructure is built like a house of cards on your personal laptop. That brings us to Section 2, the GitHub deployment decision, specifically weighing public versus private repos. And this brilliantly illustrates the critical fork in the road every developer eventually faces. Do you go public or private? Surprisingly, a lot of indie devs default to a public repository just to avoid like 5 minutes of SSH key setup, completely risking all of their proprietary logic in the process. When we compare the two, yeah, a public repo is undeniably fast to deploy. It's a simple one-command clone, requires zero authentication on your VPS, and just has fewer moving parts. But the glaring trade-off is that your code and potentially your entire business edge is fully visible to the world. A private repo, sure, demands a few extra steps. You got to generate a personal access token or set up SSH keys and properly configure those credentials on your remote server. But the verdict for this FlightSpot project was totally definitive. Private was absolutely necessary. When you're building a monetizable product with unique scaling logic or proprietary algorithms, protecting that code is non-negotiable. Those extra authentication steps are just a minor one-time setup cost for absolute long-term security. Moving right along to our third topic. Boring discipline saves hours. Because locking down the mundane details is exactly what prevents a total disaster down the line. You really have to appreciate the specific naming pattern applied here: location, underscore, region, underscore, product, bot. This exact format was rigorously applied across 8 different categories. We're talking the exact same name across the GitHub repo, the Telegram handle, the VPS system service, the internal docs, the deployment manifest, the whole shebang. Because inconsistent naming is a silent killer. It is literally the reason you find yourself screaming at your monitor at 2 a.m. because your server can't find a file you accidentally named with a capital letter. Taking just 30 minutes to name things predictably across your entire pipeline will easily save you 30 hours of hair-pulling debugging later on. Trust me on that one. Alongside those naming conventions, there's another vital structural concept here: free snapshots. Let's define this clearly because it is a massive upgrade to standard version control. A freeze snapshot is an archived, hashed, manifest-validated point-in-time copy of your deployable state. Now, I really want to highlight how this differs from a simple Git commit. Git tracks your code changes, right? But a freeze snapshot captures your entire deployable universe, the code, the manifest, the required folder structure, exactly as it needs to exist to run successfully on a completely fresh machine. These freeze snapshots are safely stored as off-site backups in Dropbox, and they effectively give you superpowers. They act as a literal time machine for your bot infrastructure. If a new deployment completely breaks everything, boom, you have instant rollback capabilities. If your hosting provider goes down and your server dies, you've got instant disaster recovery and VPS redeployment support right at your fingertips. But notice what it strictly excludes: your .env files, secrets, and logs. Keeping those out is a critical security mandate. If your Dropbox ever gets compromised, the attacker just gets the infrastructure blueprints. They do not get the actual keys to your API data or user accounts. So the crucial point is this golden rule: never break a running system to make it pretty. While the developer was building out all this beautiful, clean infrastructure in GitHub and setting up these robust snapshots, the messy, old local folder on the laptop was intentionally left completely untouched. Why? Because the bot was actively running for users. Touching that local folder risked corrupting the runtime or dropping live sessions. You build the clean infrastructure in parallel, safely off to the side, and you only retire the old local mess once the new cloud deployment is fully tested and 100% stable. And that brings us perfectly to step 4, the cloud deployment playbook. The bot is finally GitHub ready, and it is time to move it into a persistent 24/7 environment. Let's move to and see how this builds into an exact 5-step game plan. First up, you provision a fresh Ubuntu VPS on Hostinger. It's cost-effective, and it's an absolute industry standard. Second, you authenticate that personal access token we talked about earlier and securely clone the private repo onto your new server. Third, you install your Python dependencies and manually build out your .env file with your production secrets. Now, step 4 is absolutely critical: installing and enabling systemd. Systemd is the Linux service manager, and setting it up is basically buying pure peace of mind. It ensures that if your bot ever crashes due to a weird bug, it just automatically restarts itself, and if Hostinger reboots your server for maintenance, the bot boots right back up with it automatically, all while perfectly handling your log management. Finally, step 5, you run a smoke validation. This is just a quick automated test to prove the Telegram bot is actually breathing and responding to commands before you walk away and call it a day. All right, now we reach our final section, number 5, from experiment to ecosystem. Let's look at scaling this blueprint up. This is where we shift our focus from this single flight spot to what this all really means for a builder. Because the true beauty of going through all of this rigorous standardization, it's that this single blueprint flawlessly scales. The exact system designed for the BWI flight spot is the very same foundation supporting an entire massive fleet of regional and financial bots in the OpsHub ecosystem. We're talking everything from the Dipfire trading bots to the crypto scanner, the sector rotation intelligence, right over to the Casa Carlos travel bots. Once you put in the sweat to solve deployment, infrastructure, and recovery for just one bot, you have essentially unlocked a factory that can stamp out brand new, highly reliable products in minutes. Which leaves us with this fundamental truth: infrastructure discipline is what separates a hobby project from a monetizable product. This professionalization, the meticulous naming conventions, the secure freeze snapshots, the private GitHub repos, the automated systemd services, this is exactly what enables you to confidently introduce paid channels. It's what lets you scale up to recurring subscription revenue and expand into multi-country networks. You simply cannot sell a service that relies on your laptop staying awake. So I want to end this explainer with an ultimate stress test question for you to seriously consider about your own projects. Could you redeploy your most important local bot on a fresh VPS in under an hour? If the answer is no, then the blueprints and strategies we walked through today are exactly what you need to implement next. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy building.